This episode of the Stickers and Scuffs podcast has been brought to you by Remax Jack. Jack provides a friendly, customer-driven service in search for homes and provides excellent details on the market, values, and trends in buying and selling. Jack has been able to work with Cam on his search and always makes himself available when he has a question. Remax Jack will help you if you're looking to buy or sell a home within the GTA. He's who Cam K trusts to find his next home, and he should be yours too. Remember, call Remax Jack and start to pack. For more information, go to remaxjack.ca.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. Cam K, the man, Graydon Bunn, who's all patched up and ready to go here. Let's see that. Look at that beautiful thing right there. He's all patched up.
Looks like a pickle on my finger, but
he's got his finger all back together. And we got our good buddy here, our SNS driver, actually, CJ4. Connor James is here in the house. It's been a while. We've been trying to get Connor on the show, but season's over now, so we can finally have a chat. Connor, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you guys having me. And unfortunately, last time I had to cancel a little bit just because of that wreck at Delaware. Things were pretty questionable at that point, but obviously we were able to make it back out, and it's cool to be on here with you guys.
Yeah, we were considering never having you on the show ever again for you canceling. But, we forgave Wally Wilson for that, so we'll forgive you, I guess, as well. But Connor, what a great season, overall. Maybe had some stumbles along the way, like you mentioned, a big wreck. And I want to start actually with that because the broadcast didn't really show how much of an impact you actually had. We heard the car was total, but yourself, was that the hardest wreck you've ever been a part of?
Yeah, probably. It was just a racing deal, to be honest. It just the 21 and the 47 just kind of got into each other middle of the backstretch, and as we're coming out of two, my spotter Brody's calling me clear by 3 out the back, so just roll out the throttle. Didn't even get on the brakes yet. We were going to be clear because they were just spinning down on the bottom, and all of a sudden, I'm not too sure who it was, but we just got kind of run over, and we were just along for the ride, and unfortunately we took that hard hit.
Now, again, because we could only see the cars in the aftermath, they didn't really have a good replay of it. What was it that hit the hardest? Was it the side? Did you have a side impact, or was it the front impact? It
was kind of a mix of both, really, just kind of with how the car folded. These cars are built so light nowadays, and what had happened was kind of essentially, if you think about a street car wrapping itself around a telephone pole. So the initial hit was on the right front, so we hit everything pretty hard on the right front, and kind of with that impact, it kind of just wrapped the back of the car around. So we had to replace pretty well the whole right side frame rail and all the way around to the behind the driver's seat. So we honestly, there was one point we didn't know if the car was salvageable or not, but Sean McWhorter at Streamline Race Products and Taylor Holdaway, it's with those guys, we were able to get it back going. And I went up with Sean for a weekend and kind of helped him get some things prepped and ready. And it was cool to get back out.
The aftermath, when you hit, do you feel much, or is it just kind of like, are you woozy? Like I just think about, because we see all these high impacts. Obviously, we saw some on the weekend in the NASCAR Cup Series where they are really big shots, but I think people forget. And we saw it with the Pinty Series last year with Shea Gemmell at Delaware, how fast that track is and how hard you can actually hit. So when you do make an impact like that, are you able to get your wits about you, or is it kind of like, what the heck just happened?
I mean, it all happened so fast, and to be honest, with the whole wrist injury there, luckily nothing was broken. Obviously, I just had some tendon damage, and went and got that checked out. But that was just an honest mistake on my part, because on the infield, that track is so dark. So when I was spinning to the infield, usually if you know you're going to wreck hard, every driver just kind of let goes of the wheel and does this, right? Unfortunately, I didn't see them down there, so I thought I was just going to spin, be fine, everything was going to be good. But I held onto the wheel and hit so hard that kind of folded the steering wheel around. Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things where now I kind of learned, just no matter what, usually you want to try to steer out of it and save the car. But it was just kind of a freak deal where I couldn't see out the right side. If you ask any driver, you can't really see out the right side of your car with the containment seats and the Hans devices and everything. So, yeah, just kind of a banged up wrist for a couple weeks. And it was more of a pride thing that hurt, to be honest. Just, it sucks wrecking when everybody works so hard on it. But yeah, like I said, just fortunate to be able to make it back out after that.
It's not like there's a textbook and saying how to handle each wreck as it happens. I mean, you make the decision and like without even thinking, it's instinctive. So, I mean, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose in terms of whether you let go of the wheel in time or you choose to try to steer out of it, or insert injury here for any sport like that. Just you win some, you lose some.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like you're talking about that Shea Gemmell wreck. He was just kind of a sit and duck at that point. And so were we. Like my wreck is, like I said, one of the things where you can kind of try to steer out of it. But Shea's, he was just along for the ride, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of those things that we kind of talk about. And there was a great episode of the Racing It Out podcast where Todd Lewis and Caitlin Patrick actually talked about, the safety implements in these cars, and specifically the models. We know a lot about the implements in NASCAR, but in terms of your car, your late model, the safety elements of that, do we know how do they compare maybe to, say, an OSS car that you race in? Is it like, do you feel these wrecks a lot more in a late model, or is it kind of about the same? Because I'm very curious, because obviously the stock car is a bigger, heavier car, but the late model goes faster, right? So is there any sort of comparison when you actually, I don't know if you've hit in both of them. That's the only question.
Well, I mean, I can kind of give you a little bit of comparison. My first year in the Pinty Series, I was running with Anthony Simone, and we unfortunately had a caliper break on us with 5 laps to go at Jukasa going into turn 3. So we kind of hit the wall pretty decent there. But with these late models, and in most cars, they're built to crush, right? The car did its job. So, I mean, essentially, a hard hit's a hard hit. It really does suck no matter what. But the late model, it like I said, it did its job. All the crush panels on the right side came in. And the Pinty's car, when we hit with the right front, everything kind of collapsed and pushed over. So, to be honest, it's kind of hard to judge and give you a real answer on that. But just these cars are built super safe, full containment seats no matter what. Hans device, I'll never get in a race car without it. And yeah, it's just one of those things, man.
I mean, the topic is, Graydon and we were talking about this just before you came on about safety within these race cars. And because you guys don't have a ton of racetrack to move if a car gets in trouble. I mean, we saw earlier this year with the Oscar Hot Rods and a huge pileup on the front straightaway at Delaware. Like, there really isn't anywhere to go. So interesting that you say that you put your arms across. Now, is that something that you learned at a younger age or had to adapt to? Because this is something that a lot of guys that grew up watching racing, they were told to steer out of it or try not to, to hold on to the steering wheel. So was that something that you learned growing up as soon as you started racing?
Not really, to be honest. But I kind of more learned it when I ran the modified stuff with open wheels. If you touch a tire, you hop a wheel, the steering wheel will just jerk on you, right? So I kind of learned in that series to be able to just kind of let go of the wheel if something's going to happen. but it's kind of instilled in your head. There's a good video actually of Danica Patrick when she wrecks really bad one time. I think it was at like Daytona.
Yeah.
Just before she hit the inside wall, you see her just do this. It's the best thing to do for you. That way you don't, break an arm or a wrist and do some damage to yourself.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, great, because we've talked to several drivers about where they kind of started in motorsports, and actually, I don't think we know kind of where you started, Connor. I mean,
you beat me to it. I mean, look at the backdrop he's got there.
I know he's kind of got stuff from all over there. So
what's Connor's racing resume?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start from when I was a kid at 3 years old. We were in the Fox business, the dirt bike company. My dad was involved with that, so I actually was on a dirt bike before I was even in a race car, like 3 or 4 years old. And I didn't get into a race car until junior late model until I was 9, I think it was. But grew up watching Dad run a street stock and his late model at Barrie and Peterborough, and kind of after that, just went mini stock racing, and then took a few years off, and was still playing a lot of competitive hockey at the time, and finishing high school, and then kind of got back into racing. Well, I haven't stopped since 2017 when I got into a modified then, and got into a bunch of stuff from then on.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you've done quite a bit then in a short amount of time. I mean, you OSS champion, obviously that's a series that's close to our hearts, and you made your way back there this year and won in your return.
Driving for the man.
Driving for the man, Kev Trev, man. He's I mean, we got to talk about getting that opportunity, because we'll touch on the APC Series season a little bit later, but it was kind of a tough year overall for you. And to come back and then all of a sudden have a win, and then the team owner gets to win the championship right behind you. I mean, I almost thought he was going to move you just so he could win the championship and the race at the same time. But Trev is not that type of racer. So how did that deal come together?
It was honestly a really last minute kind of thing. I think I knew the Saturday before we were supposed to run it. And my dad and Kevin Trevlin, even myself, we've all been really good friends for quite a long time since I ran the OSS Series. And Kevin had that other car. I guess he had a few other people run it throughout the season. And unfortunately, I guess it had some bad luck. And so he just said, he goes, "Hey, you want to run this thing at Flamborough?" And personally, Flamborough is my favorite track. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. Let's run it. So Dad got us a couple tires, and I kind of brought the car to my place and just, cleaned it up as much as I could do, really. And got a truck and trailer from my fiance's grandpa, and he let me tow it there, and just went out. We actually missed the first 2 practices because the carburetor was loading up, and I think I had some dirt in it from when it ran on the dirt. And
I wouldn't be shocked.
Oh, I know. It was, and luckily got it running decent. And my first full speed laps in it were in qualifying. We ended up putting it second, and the first race just kind of riding around a second behind Todd, and lap car kind of got into us, and we ended up finishing, I think, like 6th or something like that.
7th.
Oh, okay. All right.
I do the results, so we're good.
This guy would know. Cool. Yeah.
Cool. And then the second one started on the pole, and Todd kind of got the good jump on me and just kind of rode around, and I think I got him on exactly lap 20, which was halfway, and just kind of tried to check out, but Kevin was hot on my tail. So, but I tell you what, Kevin, he's probably the most deserving guy to ever win that championship. He's been in it for years. I was so pumped to see him do that, and to drive one of his race cars, it was pretty cool, and since it was such a last minute thing.
I mean, remarkable. When we talk about Graydon and I, we were there for his first ever win, and for him to come out and get a championship, and it was kind of funny seeing that he's won the championship and there was no one there. He was just by himself.
Yeah.
And then you had your little crew, so he came and run over to you, and he just won the championship. It was awesome. And how did that feel, Connor? Because you had a miserable season in APC, and we can say miserable, but it was a tough season. We'll say there's it was a grind. A grind. There we go. That's why we're in this podcast game. We finish each other's. Oh man, that failed miserably.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, we
Sorry.
really are
Yeah.
the perfect fit, aren't we, buddy? But how do you feel, man? Because you got to win after all that happened this year. You got to win.
It was actually, honestly, it was a really cool feeling. It's all because of how quickly the deal came together, and it was a special night for Kevin too. But like you said, it just after such a difficult year, and it was cool to come back with the series, and it was nice to finally get a win. We hadn't won since 2019 in anything, so it's been a struggle, but it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun.
Checkered flag always puts a little pep in the step.
It does, for sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's the thing, right? Like it helps a year like this. You know what I mean? It's that one highlight that you kind of look back on, and it was cool just to wake up Sunday morning with the clock in my kitchen counter, and yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool deal that OSS has there with SWC winning race clock each time that you get a victory. So, I mean, I'm just saying, man, if there's 10 races next year, there's 10 opportunities for you to win 10 more clocks.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, that's the cool thing. Kevin said to us, he goes, "You guys just take that car home, and if you want to work on it and bring it out, it's all yours." So we'll see what happens. The tough thing is me and Dad live far apart now, so it's tough for us to work on the car together, right? But we have all winter to decide something. But for now, just kind of chilling out, and it'd be cool to maybe come back again next year.
Well, I mean, you're doing pretty well for yourself, finishing off 2019 as champion, then coming back and then winning the race. So, yeah. I mean, your percentage is pretty good.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm trying to remember what year it was that. Do you remember what year you had your car at Motorama? Was it the Sportsman car that you had there? It was 20.
It would have been 2018 with I had my limited late model there.
Oh, it was the late model. Yeah, that was the first race car that my son Owen ever sat in, and now he's like almost as tall as I am. But I mean, time flies, and now you and Taylor are getting married and everything, and growing up and racing, and you're marrying a racer too. So what's that like, having that dynamic?
It's the best thing you could ever ask for, really. I got my best friend and my soon-to-be wife that always supports me every weekend. And like I said, she was a racer too. That's where we met, was actually at Flambeau Speedway. And you're a really good friend of ours, Debbie Jo. So you know what? To have her there every weekend, it means the world. Now we got Ralph, and like you said, the wedding coming up. A lot of stuff going on, but you always want to try to be able to get the marketing and the funding to get it back out racing next year. So we are trying, and hopefully we can have some news kind of soon.
Nice.
Sorry,
Cam. I had to segue into the Friends experience because Jessica just went there this weekend, and I know you guys were there, so you got some good pictures there too, eh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tay got me onto that when we first started dating, and she's like, "You got to watch the show." I'm like, I don't know about it, but
man,
I binge watched that whole thing with her, and then when that came about, we got some tickets, and we went with her and her mom and from Holland, so that was cool.
I'd say she's a keeper.
Yeah,
getting on to Friends. That's a good call right there.
Yeah,
we watch it. I mean, we watched it when it was new, and now like Jessica, like when we sit down as a family and watch TV, we're binge watching Friends so that they're seeing it too. So it's a generational thing. Some of it's kind of edgy for TV now. It's hilarious what you watch on TV now that it's so vanilla compared to, like, you don't even think it's of Friends being edgy, but there's some funny stuff in that show.
100%.
Yeah, I just thinking that if we do see you back for Autumn Colors, there's got to be somebody that walks around with turkey on their head. I mean, that's got to be something, right?
A lot of people look like the guy that was all dressed up in 100 layers there.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's so cool is that we got to see you out and running a couple of times this year for the APC Series. Let's talk about the year that it was. Obviously, you had the big wreck, which we don't want to see for anybody. Toughest year that you've had in racing, or was it just kind of one of those years?
I think it's just one of those years, man, because we did, I think, overachieve our rookie year. We knocked off a top 5 and a bunch of top 10s, and this year, obviously, I think, like I told you, the colors there. You go into every year with high hopes, and so we had a couple decent runs going, and just had some mechanical failures, and we had a good run going at Flamborough, and I just made a honest rookie mistake with the Rick Walt deal, and that turned into a bit of a crap show. And Ricky and I are good buddies, and luckily we were all cool by the next day. And and then running, we were close to top 5 at Peterborough, had a break, and then we go to Delaware, and unfortunately that happens, and missed one race, missed the next Flamborough race, and came back and knocked off, I think, an 11th and an 8th place finish at Sauble. So it was one of those years, and I'm just fortunate to have Taylor Holdaway and to be with him, and I wouldn't do it with anybody else. And so he's the reason why I want to come back, and is because him and I have grown a lot together, and top 5 at colors. And so it's it was, like I said, man, it was one of those years, and I look forward to work with him in the off season, hopefully help him with some things, and then obviously look for that fun and to be able to go back out next year with him.
It's something we talk to a lot of racers about on here, is the mental game. Like, it's easy to get down on yourself when you don't have the results. But I mean, like you said, like, it's the way racing is. You can be taken out by a mechanical failure or an incident not of your own making, and it's easy to beat yourself. And if you're not going in there with the right mindset, it's easy to just feel like you're never going to pull out of it. But I mean, as you're talking, like, it's just one of those years, and it's not necessarily the end of the world. But I mean, you have good guys to fall back on and know that they're putting everything they can into the car for you.
100%. And I'll just go back to what you said.
And you're helping too. I mean, that's it. Like, you're
the key word right there. You're helping as well.
No, I'll go back to that.
Teamwork is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And the mental thing is obviously huge. When you have a good run going and then you break, it just, your anxiety gets to you. You think, is it you? Is it what? It's just the silliest things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, to have people to support you, like Taylor and Fred and my fiance, who's my biggest supporter, they're always there to just say, hey, you're meant to do this. You can do it. It's one of those years. I think back to JR last year. JR had a terrible year.
Yeah.
He comes out this year and waxes the field. He won a championship, which was awesome. So to be honest, if I'm able to get back out next year, I hope to God that we can have a really solid year next year. You know what I mean? Taylor builds great equipment. He can build race winning cars. It shows when JR gets in the car, and we're able to get top 5 runs in it. So obviously the mental toll it takes on any racer, it's tough. You can ask anybody, but it's kind of how you bounce back is the big thing.
It's an interesting point, because you had mentioned something just a couple minutes ago, actually, that I'm very curious about, because as somebody who lives with anxiety that has a big issue with those type of struggles, I can't imagine getting into a wreck with a friend of mine and then having to face them. You just mentioned that you got into a wreck with Rick.
Yeah,
but you're okay. You said you're okay the next day. So what is that process like after getting into a contact? It doesn't even have to be a wreck, but just getting into somebody that maybe you are good friends with. Like, what is that scenario like?
I'll go back to my hockey days on this one. It was like the 24-hour rule, right? You want to give yourself 24 hours to cool down, but I think it was a couple hours. Me and Tay, we always have a thing after any race. We always go to McDonald's and get a McNugget meal. And by the time we got to McDonald's, I get a Facebook Messenger post from him. He says, "Are we good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're good." So he came over to my house, I think the Monday night. He was buying a vehicle off of Tay and came over. We went out for dinner at Boston Pizza, and that was it. We were fine.
Nice.
I admitted I screwed up, and that was that. It was just I'll take the full blame on that deal. I cost us a great run just by a silly mistake and just kind of getting impatient. But like I said, Ricky's he's a top driver, I think, in Canada, in my opinion. That guy it shows in whatever he gets in. So, to have a buddy like him, and I look up to him a lot. He helps me out with a lot of things. It's unfortunate.
But I mean, it's one of those things that it's going to happen. Like, I think that's what we have to remember, is that it's going to happen. What I'm hearing from you though is that McDonald's Canada needs to be on board that number 4 of some point with your McNuggets, or even Boston Pizza, as you said. I mean, a Boston Pizza 31 and a 4. I mean, you guys come together through Boston Pizza. I mean, the marketing possibilities are endless, right? And then you got, I'm curious because I have my pets always running around, and they're always on camera. How much does having Ralph at the end of a tough race day, how much does that play a role? Because I know, Graydon has Audrey and Molly, and I have Chester and Nala. How is Ralph?
They're part of the support group too.
There's part of that support group, right?
Graydon hit on the head right there. He's part of the support group as well. But we got him early last year, and he was the best addition that we had since me and my fiance moved into our house. And he was there in the victory lane photo when we won at the OSS race.
Yes, he was.
So that was his first one, and he's a great dog. He's fun to bring to the racetrack. Everybody loves him. So yeah.
I mean, there's nothing better, right? After a hard day with an accident, you got to snuggle in. I've got one just hanging out with me right now on the desk, but I've got to ask you about that trophy that you've got behind you, buddy. One of the best trophies in the game. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, the Young Guns one. Yeah. I was able to win that for my good buddy Ryan Babin and Nolan Gould at Peterborough, obviously. And it was my last year I was eligible to do it. And they're like, "You want to come run our mini stock?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And that's kind of the cool thing I find about each race here is like the Young Guns race. It's that time of year when drivers will let other guys drive their cars. Like you seen it with Ricky, Hayden drive his car, Ryden, he had Trayton drive his car, right? So I find that's like the coolest point of the year for all racers. Is they kind of, hey, you see a young talent, come drive my car for the Young Guns race. And so I was fortunate to have Ryan, and he came and got me there on that Friday night, and he's like, "Yeah, come run my car." I'm like, "Okay, why not?" So that's probably my coolest trophy that I have.
Is there an age requirement for a young gun? Because I got a young racer next to me. Definitely.
I think this year was like 21, so that was quite a while ago now. So we're good.
Oh shit!
Oh,
damn!
You're down a couple years, old man.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe Owen would probably be the next best option versus this guy here. I might be a bit.
Well, CJ4, Connor James, you've been able to be a good buddy of ours, and we always like that we come to a racetrack, and you're always, no matter if you're having a bad day or what, you always give us a smile and take time for an interview. Run the decal for us, which was was huge. You were the first APC driver to do it. I mean, you can now say that you're better than Kyle Steckley and Rick Spencer-Wald. I mean, you did it before them. So
that's a tough one to do, but those guys are big drivers.
And it did pop on that black 4 black 4 car. It looked pretty good, I have to say.
Yeah, it looked pretty sharp, man. And so we obviously want to thank you for coming on the podcast, taking the time, and always doing that for us. But we want to give you that opportunity, man. We always like to hear about who you want to thank for this past year in racing, because you've got supporters, you've got some great sponsors that have been with you. So let's take the time and hear about them.
Yeah, 100%. SSG obviously our primary sponsor. They've been with us now for like 5 years since we ran our limited, and Airedale Carriers, obviously Gilbert and Donnie Oldrieve. We got North and I Collective, Kim and Kyle. We got Humberview Parts, RPM Racewear. And the one guy I always feel bad forgetting is Image Wraps, Craig Camerath at Image Wraps. He gave us a badass looking race cars all the time. And so I feel bad always forgetting him, because he makes a bunch of cars look pretty badass out there on the racetrack. And the biggest thanks goes to obviously Taylor Holdaway and the whole Holdaway Motorsports team, and for putting up with me each year. And like I said, I'm really hoping I can come back next year.
We definitely want to see that. Greg, do you have anything to say to wrap up with our good buddy Connor James?
Everything you said, we appreciate the time, man. And like you say, it's just one of those years, and you can look forward to a nice off season and regrouping and getting some plans in place. And we're looking forward to hearing whatever you do. And we're behind you, man.
100%, guys. I appreciate everything you guys do too. It's huge for the sport. I think a lot of people are catching on to it, and it's worth it because you guys do a great job. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
You know what? The invitation is always open for you. We hope to see you in Victory Lane many more times next year. If it's an OSS, I think we'll really love it. Or in the APC Series, Pinty Series, you never know. Connor James, thank you so much.
You never know when we'll see you or what series we'll see, and so we can't wait.
Yes. Sure. Thank you, guys.